Okay, everybody, final thoughts time for Runebound Unbreakable Bonds. This is phenomenal. I am so happy this exists. Because if you watch my original run through for Runebound 3rd edition, you know we were very disappointed. Not that it isn't a solid reimagining and reimplementation of Runebound 2nd edition, but it so streamlined and homogenized the core Runebound experience. Because Jen and I, we really enjoyed Runebound 2nd edition, in spite of the fact that it was a very Ameritrashy game, but there was so much in there we loved that when we went into Runebound 3rd edition, we thought it'd be nothing but improvements. For us, it was a real step backwards in a lot of ways. Now, that's not to say there weren't some really amazing, wonderful things in Runebound 3rd edition that I loved the idea of. It's just that the way all these pieces came together, we did not find compelling. We loved the notion of skill cards as a resource. You want these because you want to learn these skills, but you need to spend these to be able to exert yourself, to offset random luck of card draws and dice rolls. I mean, that core idea is so good and so smart. Absolutely love it. And the replacement of dice combat with casting of runes, because we are rune-bound, worked really nicely too. I love the idea of it. But, like I said, the streamlining and homogenization of the game we were not big fans of, but more importantly, we hated the combat in the game. In the original Runebound, we're both heroes when we're playing a two-player game. We're both trying to save the world. So why is this when I have to fight a character, a monster, in my quest to literally save the world, it falls on you, or if you have to fight a monster, it suddenly falls on me to do everything I can to try to destroy you, to play on behalf of the monster and play as smart as I can to just ruin you, just felt so wrong and so awful and so out of keeping with the overall tone of the game. We just hated it. It just ruined it for us. And at the time, I mentioned in my original final thoughts on Runebound, man, I wish that there was some system that automated that so that I was fighting against the game, not against another player. Yay, Unbreakable Bonds. It gives exactly that. And it does it in a way that's better than I could have imagined. These programming charts, for lack of a better term, for the 4 different classes of monsters work so well. You just cast rooms, you put them out there, and now you can see exactly what that monster is going to do. Sometimes what the monster is going to do is very simple, very straightforward. Sometimes it's very subtle and very clever, depending on what kind of surges they get. Either way, I now cast my runes, and I know I've got every round of combat is an interesting puzzle. I've got my resources, you've got your resources, and how am I going to leverage what I've got best to work within the puzzle landscape that the monster has created for me. It works so great. It's so fast. It's so smooth. It's got to be one of my new favorite mechanisms for resolving combat in an adventure game. Have I done a top 10 combat mechanisms? I think I have. And I think I would have to revisit that because this delivers on all the promise that this had, but and for our taste, squandered for a variety of various reasons. Now, don't get me wrong, there are still things I don't like about Runebound 3rd edition. I still don't like how the terrain dice work. I still think it's infinitely better in the 2nd edition. I still think the game's probably a little bit on the longer side, but that's always been Runebound. That's just something you got to live with. But the fighting against monsters is now so much fun. It makes up for those. I enjoy the fights. I look forward to the fights now, as opposed to them just being something I have to kind of get through to get back to what the Runebound has always offered, a great sense of exploration and adventure and leveling up. That's what Runebound has always been about. And now, with the Unbreakable Bonds, we can finally enjoy it to its full effect. And another thing, honestly, that would have been enough. Just the automation of combat would have been fine. And quite frankly, I'm not sure about this, but I believe that works. If you want, you can still play Runebound as a competitive game and just bring those little charts in so that when you have to fight monsters and you're racing against everybody else, you fight against the AI. I'm not sure. I think that would work. I'd have to double check that. I don't remember reading that in the rules, but I don't see why that wouldn't work. But in all honesty, I would never want to play Runebound uncooperative again, because This over-delivered. Not only did it make the combat awesome, but the cooperative elements in this game are great. They all come down to one central decision that players are constantly having to make and reevaluate throughout the game. Do we split the party? Because with the addition of cooperative group skills that we can all contribute to. So they're very easy skills to learn. Normally skills are tough for me to learn because I got to earn the trophies myself and then spend them myself. But now, with everybody having trophies, chances are any co-op thing, we could learn that very quickly by everybody contributing to it. So they're easy to learn, and then everybody knows the skill, no matter where they are in the world. So that's great that we can contribute together. So these are much easier. So you're more inclined to want to learn these cooperative skills. But then the problem is they only work when we travel together. And so much of this game puts you in situations where you want to split up. I'm picking up green quests that make me want to go off to the far west and make you want to go off to the far south. Means we should really split up now. And so we can go complete our quests in half the time. Because if you're going to travel all the way over here with me, and then I'm going to travel all the way over here with you, we are not being efficient. And this is a game about efficiency because we only have so much time. We have to be leveling as fast as possible to defeat the omnipresent, ever-growing threat. So we want to split up more often than not. But we need to stick together because otherwise we throw away all those really cool cooperative powers we unlocked. And they are really amazing. The fact that, okay, well, you're the, just the fact that, hey, we both have different strengths and weaknesses for a fight. Who's going to be the lead on this particular fight, and who's going to support through these cooperative support combat mechanisms skills that we've unlocked? Just that, it becomes an interesting decision that is fun to revisit over and over again. Deciding whether to stick together, whether to rendezvous. Okay, well, I will go east, you go south. But you know what? After I'm done with the east, I'll start heading over directly south. You head west, and then we'll meet up back here because by the time we're done with all this, that's going to be where the next core event we have to deal with is anyway. And then we can get back together, we can rendezvous, and then cover that, and then maybe stick together or maybe split up again. That level of planning is great. That high-level stuff that you have to do. And I've only played this as a two-player game. I can only assume it gets even more omnipresent with more players, where you might often have two people, okay, let you and me travel together because now we can travel twice as fast because we're working, I'm traveling on your turn, you're traveling on my turn, and we're both just trying to get across the world but meanwhile, two other players, if you're playing a four-player game, well, we've had to split up because we have to do our own little things off in these corners, and hopefully we'll meet up with you guys later. It's great. It just makes me so happy. And then they went the extra mile and retroactively made co-op versions of the other big scenarios that have already come out. Thank you, Fantasy Flight. So you make it more attractive to get the other expansions by making them all co-opable. It's fantastic. Like I said, I'm over the moon. I was so saddened when this didn't work out for us. But this now completes this and turns this into a wonderful, wonderful adventure that it earns and is worthy of the pedigree of the Runebound name. Oh, hey, one more thing I forgot to mention in all my rapturous praise for this wonderful expansion. There are two things I'm less than happy about. One, I mentioned actually in the main talkthrough video, the events that happen in shops, they're okay. I mean, they work all right for co-op, but I can't imagine they'd ever be a good addition to playing normal competitive because they're so swingy. One player can get completely worked over while another player just gets off scot-free or gets huge bonuses. And so in the competitive landscape, I don't think they'd work very well. But for co-op, they're fine. They're okay. But the only issue I have with this is sometimes in combat, or the automated combat, the enemies will have to make a choice. It won't be 100% spelled out. This is normally as a result of them activating some kind of surge or another. And the rules very specifically say, whenever the enemies have to make a choice that's not specified how they would do it based on their programming sheet, you are always supposed to pick the choice that is worst for you, that has the worst outcome. And in a case where, hey, there's multiple things and it's hard to tell what would actually be worst for me, instead, you can just take 2 points of damage. I have to admit, I am not crazy about that approach at all. I would much rather that whenever you have to make a choice, you get to make whatever choice you want. So you'll make the choice that's better for you, or least damaging to you, and to compensate for that, all the enemies should just be increased in difficulty a little bit. The bonuses they get that are listed at the top of their sheets should be a bit more powerful, or something like that, because it works, it's okay, it doesn't ruin it for me, but it just doesn't quite feel right, and it kind of flies in the face of the whole thing, me having to purposely try to screw myself over, rather than, all my strategic decisions are supposed to be about how to benefit me and come out ahead in this combat. I would think that should go for decisions you make on behalf of the monsters, and then just make the monsters a little bit tougher, or something like whenever a monster has to make a choice, you choose for them, but in addition to whatever your choice is, do 1 point of damage. Something like that, because in other games where you've had to make choices like this, it's all, like, say, Gloomhaven, you always get to make a choice in your benefit, whatever benefits you the most, and the game's overall difficulty level takes that into account. Runebound Unbreakable Bonds doesn't. I think that's a slight trick that they missed, but otherwise, it's wonderful. And it's just a blast. We absolutely love it. Runebound, 3rd edition, Unbreakable Bonds. Fantastic. Job well done, Fantasy Flight. And that's it, folks. Thanks for watching. Have a very, very nice day. Talk to you later. So long. Bye-bye.